Namaskar, hello and welcome viewers. You're watching this special presentation of Sansad TV, Bills and Acts, where we analyze bills that impact you, acts that empower you and programs that matter to you. I'm your host Kriti Mishra and today the spotlight is on the Repealing and Amending Bill. Before the analysis, let's take a look at the highlights. Repealing and Amending Bill 2022 seeks to repeal 65 laws which are either obsolete or have become redundant due to operation of other laws. The bill contains 3 schedules. The first schedule lists 24 laws enacted between the years 1885 and 2020. The second schedule lists 41 appropriation acts enacted between the years 2013 and 2017. The third schedule lists 1 act which has to be amended. Well, viewers, now sample this. Under the Indian Treasure Trove Act, 1878, you could have been jailed if you were found anything worth more than 10 rupees and did not report it to the revenue officer. Among the myriad laws in India, there are those that made strange demands. A century-old law said that the toll tax for boats ferrying passengers across the river Ganga cannot be more than 2 annas, a denomination not in use anymore. There were many more laws in the statute books which had been of no use as provisions of most of these old acts had already been incorporated in new legislation. And to analyze this act and the proposed bill, I'm joined by an illustrious panel of guests. Joining us in the studio, Mr. Kriti Tulsi, member of Rajya Sabha, he represents the Congress Party. Also joining us, Justice Mool Garg, former judge, Delhi High Court. Also in the studio with us, Dr. Komal, Dean, Sharda School of Law, Sharda University. We also have with us Mr. Roop Sharma, member of CII Legal Services Committee. I welcome all of you on Sansad TV and thank you so much for joining us. And let's begin the program with Member Parliament on our panel. Mr. Tulsi, the government so far has repealed around 1,400 obsolete laws. As a Member of Parliament and more importantly, as a legal doyen, how do you see the importance of the Act, the Order Act and the proposed legislation?
See, I believe that just as making laws which are required is very necessary, you can't simply ignore it. But even more important is repealing them when they have become redundant. If you don't, many a times there will be confusion, there will be certain orders which are passed because there is such a plethora of laws. There are 3.5 crore cases. So there will be thousands of such statutes which the judge is not able to refer to because they are not necessary, they are not relevant. And I think it's very important for ensuring that justice is not unduly burdened. And therefore, Amendment Bill, I would like to congratulate the government in taking it up. And actually, I believe that the Honorable President of India has recommended the adoption of these laws.
Absolutely, sir. And as you said that the judges, it is very difficult for the judges to refer to all these laws. Let's take that question to the justice on our panel. Justice Garg, now the government says that it wants to reduce the compliance burden and improve the access to delivery system. Mr. Tulsi also mentioned how it is difficult for the judges to refer to all these myriad laws that we have in our country. As judge yourself, how do you rate or how do you assess?
This is essential because
yes, sir.
The laws have been framed right from 1947 and many have become obsolete. 1861.
Imagine.
The IPC and the...
So basically we require a review of all the laws which are in existence. Many of them are of no use at all. So there is a need for kind of a scrutiny of all the laws which are in existence. And I believe most of not 50%, but more than 50% will be just of no use at all.
You have to waste
Quick
so much
comment
time.
from Mr. Tulsi. Yes, sir. 50%.
You have to waste so much time to be able to decide as to whether this law makes sense or not.
Right.
And therefore, I think the 4 schedules
Yes, sir.
I eloquently mentioned, but I feel that there are certain other laws which need to be repealed, which have not yet been taken up. For example, the question of sedition. The sedition was an offence in 1861 IPC. After that, it has been removed from the statute book of UK, and yet we have it here. When the Constitution has come into force and given the citizen the right to speak, the freedom to speak, and not only speak, also being able to access any number of persons, how can we say sedition? Sedition what? Sedition is for countries which have its basis, its roots in a religion. The Christian, therefore, countries will say that sedition is of His Majesty or Her Majesty. But in India, which is a republic, where is this sedition? This is like any other ordinary offence. And the courts have to then deal with cases which do not make out any offence, and yet they remain on their statute book, increasing the only person who gains by this is the judge, who has to spend so much time.
So, sir, do you think that automatically we should have the sunset clause in many of such laws?
Yes, I think so. Now, blasphemy is only when somebody has caused a riot on religious basis.
That's right.
So you say something against Christianity, it's an offense over there. But why should we say that even in India, if you speak about Christianity, it's an offense? Why? We are not a country which is governed by a king or a queen.
That's right.
This is a republic, and therefore the sovereignty rests with the people.
That's right. Sovereignty rests with the people. But another important factor, Mr. Sharma, I'd like to discuss with you. The government has also been talking about ensuring ease of doing business in India, reducing the compliance, and also making minor economic offences, decriminalizing them. Has that ease of doing business actually translated on ground?
Well, if we have to see, last year, India was ranked 142 in the ease of doing business in the world. And there are many laws which needs to be decriminalized by the government, and the talks are there. The CII is working very closely with the government, and we have suggested many laws which needs to be decriminalized, which will definitely ease out for more corporates to come to India and more funding to come to India, and the business should go in the right direction. But as Mr. Tulsi has rightly said, that these laws which are there in this bill, they need to be repealed. Plus, there are many others which needs to be seen by the government. They need to be judged properly. The government is already took a lot of years to take suggestion from various industries, from various interests, from various parties who are interested in
various stakeholders.
Various stakeholders, yes.
Right. Absolutely. But Dr. Vivek, since we're talking about reducing the entire compliance burden, again, law and order is the state subject. The essence or the success of this law lies when the states also actively participate in this particular process. Your thoughts on that?
Yes, you're right that so far, as you said, that approximately 1,400, more than 1,400 laws have been those have been repealed by and many of the state legislatures are also taking the same. 76 have been repealed in the last Amendment Act only. And so far, other states like Kerala state, Rajasthan, state of Rajasthan, they are quite active in doing that. They are also repealing many of the old laws. One thing I would like to add in here, as if you said that should there be any sunset clause?
Yes.
This is very important point to think for the legislature. Because most of the Appropriation Act which have been passed in the recent past also, they do not have the sunset clause as is a general practice in US and UK, Australia, other countries. But here we do not have. If that sunset clause would have been there, then I think the main problem of bringing this Repealing Act and Amendment Act would be the burden will be little lower down.
All right, ma'am, that's a very valid suggestion that you gave. And since we have the lawmaker on our panel, let's take that to him. Sir, Madam says that it is upon the legislatures in the country and of course the parliament. Do we expect a private member bill, Mr. Tulsi?
Why not? Of course. But I would like to say this, that these laws, we are performing the ritual of funeral. It's a funeral which is going to be set to fire. And where is the question of sunset? There is no sunset, there is burning
Okay.
down of this law, and sunset will be different altogether. But then I would like to give an example of another one,
Yes, sir.
which qualifies for being declared, for being withdrawn, for being repealed, and that is unlawful assembly. All the citizens of this country, and in some cases even non-citizens in this country, have a right to express their opinion. But then the government chooses to impose section 145. And 145 is an offence which is being committed, but we have been constitutionally given the right to assemble, to have an arrangement for reaching out to the people with a certain viewpoint. If you are not going to allow that, is that not unconstitutional? And then why should we not remove this as an offence? Unlawful assembly. What is lawful and what is unlawful about assembly? Assembly has been given the power under the Constitution.
But Mr. Tulsi, aren't these laws not absolute?
I am saying that even unlawful assembly should have been included in that. And not only that, there is a debate which is going on death penalty.
That's right.
I personally believe that death penalty should be retained, and the Constitution of India, as interpreted by the Supreme Court, has categorically said that it's lawful, but it should be exercised only in the rarest of the rare cases.
That's right.
Now, rarest of rare is fine. Why? Either we follow the 142 other countries which have removed it, or at least we adopt the principle which has been laid down by the Supreme Court instead of this confusing ritual of the police and the citizen being on warpath against each other. That should be avoided.
All right, Justice Garg, a quick response to what Mr. Tulsi said, and then I'll go back to our audience.
See, there needs a review. There needs a review of all the laws. Many laws you will find are useless, and many laws have been framed at time when we were not independent.
1880s, yes, sir.
So those laws have no bearing on the actual our this thing. Like some acts were being used at the time of emergency.
Right, sir.
So they were of old acts when the British government was there. So this requires a review. This requires a review. Like even the framing of forms, like
Right.
which are being prepared at the time of employment. So certain formats which were at that time they used to fill it up, and they are still being filled up.
Absolutely. I also read there was a law that for flying kite you need a license.
Yes.
Of course, times have
That was
changed.
the Aircraft Act.
Yes, that's right, ma'am. Let's take, yes, sir.
That needs a review.
Absolutely, sir. Absolutely.
There
Point
is
taken.
also a prison manual
Yes, sir.
in the country where the prisoner is liable to be imposed a fine if he wears Gandhi topi.
Imagine.
So therefore, why did we fight for freedom?
Precisely. Precisely.
It has
sir.
to be protected, and this is only the confused state of affairs which is responsible for things like this.
Absolutely, sir. That's a very, very important point that you mentioned. On that note, let's take some questions from our audience here. Please go ahead. You have a very erudite panel.
India is a republic and it is a democratic nation. Still, we are following the laws that have been enacted by the Britishers. It was in news that the government is planning to bring amendments in IPC, evidence, police manual, jail manual, everything.
But do we have a Macaulay?
Yes, that Macaulay laws.
Where is the Macaulay? The IPC was, and the Evidence Act and the Criminal Procedure Code were all drafted by him
That's the
in 1860.
yes, that's the question. They were framed at that time. So, is there any intent of the government to when they are going to bring the amendments in these acts? And second question is, what is the procedure that is adopted by the parliament to check whether this law is obsolete and this law is not obsolete?
Well, I would like to ask you, will you draft 302 or 299 or 300? Would anybody in India be able to draft that? Penal code is a masterpiece, and we need not be sorry for giving it its due. For over a century and a half, they have guided us from one generation to the other, and it is perfectly balanced. It does avoid the problem comes in this when we have indulged in tampering with IPC or the Evidence Act, such a small statute, and it covers every part or every aspect of a human intercourse.
You wanted to make a point?
And to add what Mr. Tulsi has just said, the government has amended IPC on various occasions. There are many amendments with respect to the penalties which are there, and also there are certain sections which have been removed from IPC. It is very important to understand that with the current situation and change in the generation, not one generation but various generations, we have to keep one thing in mind, and the government also need to understand that they cannot go beyond the principles of the criminal jurisprudence while changing and amending the criminal law.
Thank you.
Right, absolutely. Dr. Please go ahead.
Add in something.
Floor is yours. Yeah.
His question is, what steps are taken by the government? Let me inform you, since I am a representative from academia, since 1 year government has been floating many questionnaires and many kind of survey documents for the amendment of IPC, CRPC and evidence, the whole criminal justice system, all those laws related to those amongst all the stakeholders. Even we have received, and I believe that 1 year ago we sent many of the recommendations to the Law and Justice Ministry. And they people are collecting those information and those suggestions from all the stakeholders, right from advocates and all the people who are a part of this criminal justice system. And I believe very soon we will be getting many amendments in the criminal laws of the country.
All right.
They are working on it.
Yes, sir. Yes,
May
Mr.
I say
Tulsi.
that we should change the rules of the houses, of the two houses, with regard to private person petition. If we file the petition, then we can persuade the government to accept to an amendment. And if they are reaching out to the law teacher, they also reach out to the lawyers.
But sir, there's petitions committee as well.
But petitions committee, the turn of hearing doesn't come for several years till you retire from the parliament.
All right. I hope the chairman of the petitions committee is hearing. Let's take another question now. Please go ahead. Ask your question. Yeah.
So my question is, are there any potential negative consequences of repealing or obsolete laws?
So perhaps the question is that if we do not,
the Parliament has the power to make laws. The power to make laws also include the power to repeal. Necessarily, if you are an officer and you have been appointed by the President of India, no one lower than the President can remove you. So it's the same principle which applies. All these statutes also have within it the power to repeal. But it is also implicit. When a particular section is held ultra vires, then the rest of it stays. But who else will, how will people know? Every year we wait for the new issue.
That's true.
of the Criminal Procedure Code to know as to what all procedures have been changed. So, the right to repeal is inherent in the
Right.
parliament. That's the only body, democratic body, which is going to decide this.
Absolutely. And before we wrap up the show, time for closing comments from all our guests. Justice Garg, your closing thoughts.
They have the will to repeal the laws which are obsolete, but let's see how it goes on.
Mr. Sharma, your closing thoughts.
I think the will is there. Definitely will is there because they are taking suggestions from various stakeholders, from the corporate world, from lawyers and from member parliaments. With the new kind of regime which has been established by the government and by judiciary, by not putting the right light as per what has been guided and what has been written in the criminal jurisprudence. The new kind of acts which have been now, we can see PMLA. In PMLA, ED has power not to give you ECIR. You will not get the copy of the complaint.
So
This
you
is
need more
completely
clarity.
Yes,
That's
we
what you're
need
saying.
more clarity.
Yes.
We need everybody who has been accused of an offence, he should be at least aware of what I've been investigating for.
Right.
You're going to start an investigation, and then you're not going to allow me to have a look on the complaint which is lodged against me.
But that's a judgment of the Supreme Court.
And not
Sir,
the
it
law.
is-
And it's supreme.
Totally, sir. It is a judgment of the Supreme Court, but basis on the PMLA Act.
Yes.
Right, so probably more clarity is needed. Dr. Vig, your closing thoughts.
Yes, I would like to first of all appreciate government's efforts for repealing old laws, because so far they have weeded out many of the obsolete ones, and yes, they are doing well. I just would like to give two suggestions. First one is that in India we try to resolve all the things by the legislative actions, by laws, by bringing more laws.
That's true.
So this should be in little control. This should be controlled, number one. And number two, as I mentioned, that if the acts are passed with the sunset clause or the expiry date, like Tada, Pota and all
Right,
those kind of
right.
draconian, so-called draconian acts. So I believe that especially the appropriation acts, if they are passed with the expiry date, that is always good, and at least the burden will be lowered.
Those are legit suggestions. And let's give the last word to the Member Parliament on our panel today.
So I would like to congratulate the government
Yes, sir.
for entertaining this idea, because most governments think that it's totally irrelevant, unnecessary, waste of time. But no, the law must be succinct. They
That's
say
right.
that a law is good if its draft can be kept in the pocket. And the farmer must be able to understand the law, should be able to read the law, should be able to understand the law. Then only we are going to have a better society. So I congratulate the government.
Absolutely. So lucidity is a very important part of it, as you're saying, sir. On that very important suggestion, let's wrap up the show. Thank you so much for joining us, Justice Garg, Mr. Tulsi, Dr. Vig, and Mr. Sharma.
Thank you.
Well, viewers, that's all we had for you in this edition. Thanks for watching and stay tuned to Sansad TV. Goodbye for now from my side.